At the top of a small island off the coast of Scotland, on Iona, a young woman's naked body was found lying on a crude cross carved into the earth. She wore only a dark cloak. But what happened on that island? A lot of people say she went too far. Her name was Marie Emily Netta Fornario. To the police, she was just another body. To the newspapers of the time, a curious mystery. But to the people moving behind the scenes of British occultism, the story was something else entirely. Netta wasn't a lost tourist. She was an occultist connected to esoteric orders, close to influential figures in ceremonial magic. A woman who claimed she could speak with entities, heal from a distance, walk between worlds, and who, shortly before she died, said she was under psychic attacks. And this is where her life stops being just another strange, true crime headline and starts pressing on an uncomfortable question that every spiritual seeker eventually has to face. How far can you go in the search for answers? Without crossing a line you may never be able to come back from. If you're into occultism, secret societies, deep spirituality, you've probably felt that inner pull, that urge to go beyond books, beyond shallow explanations, to feel the invisible on your own skin. Netta's story is fascinating and disturbing for exactly that reason. It feels like the portrait of someone who followed that impulse all the way to the edge, and maybe stepped past it, long before she ever reached that freezing hill on Iona. Netta was a child living between worlds. She was born in 1897 in Cairo, in a world shaped by the clash between tradition and modernity. Her father was an Italian doctor, her mother, English. Her mother died when Netta was still a baby. Her father returned to work in Egypt, and Netta was sent to England to be raised by her maternal grandparents. An environment of material comfort, but ruled by a strict, moralistic Protestant grandfather, deeply religious. On one side, a severe Christian household full of rules, guilt, and doctrine. On the other, an origin marked by cultural crossings, pharaonic ground, the shadows of ancient temples, and legends thousands of years old. Even when a child doesn't understand it rationally, the unconscious records it. Netta's life is defined by that paradox. A sensitive, imaginative soul trapped inside a narrow religious mold, growing up with the feeling that there's something more, but that it's forbidden to ask. There are signs she spent part of her youth in Italy before returning to Great Britain, but everywhere it was the same feeling. She struggled to put down roots, like she never fully fit anywhere. That pattern is familiar to a lot of people who end up drawn to the esoteric path. Ordinary life feels too shallow. Small talk doesn't satisfy. Daily routine can't hold the weight of your inner questions. That emptiness can become the doorway to a great quest, or to a deep abyss. In the 1920s, that quest pulled Netta into a very specific circle, the British occult scene. An environment deeply shaped by the influence of the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn, an order that had already produced names like Aleister Crowley, W.B. Yeats, and other famous magicians. After internal splits, offshoots appeared, like the Alpha et Omega Temple, led by Samuel and Moina Mathers, keeping alive the tradition of ceremonial magic, Hermetic Kabbalah, and complex rituals that blended Christian, Egyptian, alchemical and pagan symbolism. That's the universe Netta stepped into. Esoteric sources say she was a member of Alpha et Omega. And more than that, close to one of the most influential figures in British esotericism, Dion Fortune, author, medium, founder of the Fraternity of the Inner Light, still respected today by magicians, theosophists, and scholars of esoteric psychology. Dion referred to Netta with affectionate nicknames, and according to the accounts, the two shared not only ritual practices, but deep confidences about spiritual experiences. But before we continue, welcome to our portal, Esoterica Mind, I'm Gabriel Alexandre, and every video on this channel is a reminder of your own soul. So subscribe right now, turn on notifications, and share this video. Drop a like to support our work, and comment down below to help decide what topic you want to see in the next video. Now, back to our journey. Inside that circle, Netta was already seen as different. She wasn't just a disciplined student of theory and ritual. She genuinely believed she could heal people from a distance using telepathy. She talked about contact with subtle beings. She took the invisible world literally, as a concrete, almost physical reality, acting directly on people's health, mood, and destiny. While many members of those orders treated ritual as a symbolic system for working with the unconscious, Netta seemed to experience it as literally real. When she spoke about psychic attacks, she wasn't being metaphorical. To her, magicians, entities, and forces could strike her mind, her energy, her very life from far away. On top of that, there were reports of possible health problems involving her pituitary gland and a fragile physical condition. That alone can affect perception, mental balance, and emotional stability. Add in late-night vigils, trances, occult rivalries, and intense readings of the unseen, and the ground is set for powerful experiences and dangerous ones, and the orders themselves were anything but calm. The Golden Dawn and its offshoots lived in a constant state of tension. Leadership disputes, accusations of black magic, silent struggles for astral power. In her writings, Dion Fortune even suggested that Alpha et Omega's leader, Moina Mathers, may have used magic improperly, and that internal psychic attacks within the circle could lead to illness and tragic outcomes. Later, Dion would link Netta's death to that kind of invisible aggression. Now imagine Netta in the middle of that storm, a woman in her early 30s, extremely sensitive, carrying old grief, raised between religious rigidity and mystical longing, immersed in an environment where any discomfort could be read as a psychic attack, any coincidence as a sign, any dream as a message. For someone like that, the world is never neutral. Everything is code. Everything is an omen. One detail helps decode the final stretch of her life. The phrase, "I've got a terrible case of healing on my hands." In one of the last messages she sent to her housekeeper in London, Netta said she'd be out of touch for a while because she was involved in healing work so intense she couldn't afford distractions. She talked about telepathic long-distance healing, like she'd taken on some kind of spiritual mission, something too big to share with anyone who wasn't on the same path. And then, on the horizon, a very specific place appears, the island of Iona. Small, silent, surrounded by icy water. Iona is one of the cradles of Celtic Christianity, an island of monks, pilgrims, relics, a place of ancient monasteries, stone crosses, ruins, and cemeteries where, they say, kings and saints were buried. At the same time, it's a land wrapped in folklore. Fairies, enchanted hills, doorways between worlds, one of those places where tradition says the veil between worlds is thinner. For someone like Netta, that isn't just poetry, it's spiritual geography. The island isn't just a tourist destination, it's a crossing point, a liminal place, and liminal places for intense seekers work like magnets. If you feel the pull of the invisible, an island like Iona seems to promise exactly what every magician, mystic, or sensitive person longs for: answers, contact, clear signs. When Netta decides to travel there, she isn't simply taking a vacation, she's walking into a ritual field, consciously or unconsciously. The combination is powerful. An occultist who believes in telepathic healing, who feels under psychic attack, carrying personal and esoteric tensions, traveling to an island famous for being a place between worlds. This isn't religious tourism, It's a deliberate entry into liminal territory. And here, it's worth pausing, especially for you watching who recognizes yourself in this kind of search. How many times on the spiritual path do we romanticize that plunge into the unknown? Portals, sacred places, secret rituals. It's seductive to imagine that over there, everything will finally make sense. But if inside we're confused, wounded, or unbalanced, these places don't hand us ready-made answers. They amplify. Places of power aren't neutral, they intensify. And what gets intensified isn't always beautiful. Netta arrived on Iona in 1929. To the islanders, she was just another reserved foreigner, walking around in simple clothes, carrying notebooks, a few books, with a distracted, distant look. But inside her, something far more complex was moving. She walked the island every day, vanished for hours, climbed small hills, stood motionless staring at the horizon, like she was listening to something no one else could hear. When she returned, she wrote things down in her notebooks, drafted letters, looked exhausted, like she'd spent the entire day somewhere else. To the locals, she was polite, and at the same time, halfway in another world. Until, in the final days, the atmosphere shifts. The woman, hosting her later, reported that Netta began to insist that things were following her. She said she was being attacked telepathically, that someone or something was striking her from a distance, doing terrible things to her on a psychic level. At one point, she said she needed to leave the island immediately. She hurriedly packed her bags, saying she was going. Not long after, she changed her mind, unpacked everything, stayed, as if she were trapped between two inner commands, one telling her to retreat and another demanding she go all the way. That back and forth is one of the key points in her story. In any intense spiritual process, that moment of hesitation can be dangerous. You realize you're crossing a line, you think about pulling back, but you feel like turning around would betray your mission. On a Sunday morning in November, Netta left the house wearing only a dark cloak. No luggage, no dramatic goodbye. It looked like one of her long walks. She took with her a crucifix, possibly a dagger, maybe a few small personal items. She didn't come back. That night, her host assumed Netta might have rushed onto a boat, deciding to leave without saying goodbye. The next day, when no one confirmed seeing her at the pier, alarm bells went off. Neighbors and locals began searching the paths she usually walked. On the second day, the search became organized, and on November 19th, 1929, her body was found, lying on the grass, on a rise near a lake, in a position some described as if she was sleeping. Completely naked under a black cloak, her body placed over a cross carved into the ground, as if someone, maybe even herself, had marked that spot with a symbol of protection, sacrifice, or passage. A dagger nearby, scratched feet, a darkened silver crucifix hanging from her neck. There were no obvious signs of extreme physical violence, nothing that clearly pointed to sexual assault or conventional murder. The medical report recorded death by exposure to the elements, cold, wind, rain, hypothermia, a slow, silent death on a sacred hill, on an island surrounded by legends of monks and fairies. On paper, the case was closed. A fragile woman in poor health, perhaps in a mental break or altered state of consciousness, gets lost in the cold, undresses, collapses, can't make it back. The end. But to the occult world of the time, none of that made sense as the only explanation. Dion Fortune didn't receive the news as a tragic coincidence. To her, Netta had been the victim of something far more complex, a psychic attack. In one of her books about psychic self-defense, Dion mentions a friend, nicknamed Mac, who was heading into waters that were far too deep, and for whom it was certain that sooner or later there would be trouble. She hints that powerful forces were involved, that it was the result of a war on the subtle plane. She even connects Netta's death to invisible disputes and aggressions tied to the orders they belonged to. To a rationalist view, that kind of reading sounds exaggerated, but it reveals how the magicians themselves interpreted the event, not as a sum of physical factors, but as the outcome of a psychic battle. As the years passed, another layer added itself to the myth: the location of the body, a rise near a lake, on an island wrapped in stories of enchanted hills, led some authors to associate the case with the imagery of the fairy hills, described in Celtic tradition as passage points between the human world and the fairy realm. So Netta's death began to be retold as the death on the fairy hill. Whether that's literal or not doesn't matter. The symbol took on a life of its own. But what are we supposed to do with all of this? On one side, there's the more skeptical reading, a mental collapse. The combination of intense beliefs in psychic attack, physical vulnerability, isolation in an unfamiliar place, pressure to save someone from a distance, plus internal conflicts within a cult. Orders could open the door to a psychotic episode. In that state, a person may undress without realizing the danger, interpret any physical sensation as a spiritual sign, make risky decisions believing they're obeying higher voices. That hypothesis is harsh, but it has to be considered, especially because even today, many spiritual environments talk endlessly about negative energies and barely talk about concrete mental health. It's more comfortable to blame demons, fairies, enemy magicians, or astral masters than to face depression, anxiety, psychotic disorders, and the very real need for medical and psychological support. On the other side, there's the more esoteric reading that Netta deliberately performed a ritual there. The carved cross would be a seal of protection or sacrifice. The dagger, an instrument of will and cutting. The black cloak, ritual clothing. In this scenario, she was trying to defend herself, close a cycle, cut ties, maybe provoke an extreme mystical experience, and her body couldn't withstand it. And then there's a third reading that all of this came from a mix of layers, a heavy psychic atmosphere within the orders, extreme sensitivity, subjective experiences that were real to her, plus fragile health and radical isolation. At that intersection, the boundary between inner reality and outer reality dissolves. And this is where her story stops being just a macabre curiosity and starts working like a mirror. Because if you're watching this video, there's a good chance that on some level, you also move along these boundaries. Maybe you've felt like the world around you is speaking to you, that certain coincidences are more than chance, that dreams carry messages, that places have an energy you can actually feel. Maybe you've felt the pull of a system, a tradition, a teacher, like some part of you has been involved with that for a very long time. None of that is automatically a problem. It can even be a legitimate expression of spiritual sensitivity. But there is a line, and that line no one draws for you. Netta's path seems to show what happens when that line gets thinner and thinner. She begins as a student of occultism inside structured orders. Little by little, the inner universe becomes more real than the outer one. Human conflicts, arguments, disputes, frustrations start being read only as astral warfare. Signals from the body and mind are interpreted solely as spiritual symptoms. The search turns into isolation. The calling turns into obsession. When she writes that she has a terrible case of healing on her hands, you can hear not only compassion, but the weight of someone who took on the role of savior. That's another recurring risk on magical paths, spiritual ego inflation. The feeling that if you don't do your work, something catastrophic will happen in the invisible realm. And at that point, occultism stops being a tool for awakening and becomes a subtle prison. Interestingly, when we Compare Netta's story with other occultists from the same era, including Dion Fortune herself. We see different choices in the face of the same sense of danger. Dion also spoke about psychic attacks. She also described subtle wars. But instead of isolating herself alone on a liminal island, she devoted herself to building a fraternity, writing books, systematizing psychic protection techniques, creating community. One path moves toward integration, the other toward disappearance. This isn't about judging who was right or wrong. It's about recognizing patterns. Faced with the same feeling of invisible pressure, one person chooses to build anchoring. The other surrenders to the abyss of isolation. And the most unsettling part is that, inside Netta's logic, everything made sense. If she believed she was under psychic attack, going to a sacred, isolated place with a tradition of holiness and spiritual portals might have seemed like exactly what her guides were asking. If she believed, someone's healing depended on her total surrender. Pushing herself to the edge could feel like sacrifice, a test, a rite of passage. The problem is, the body isn't a symbol, it's a limit. That's a truth that rarely gets said bluntly in certain mystical circles. There is no true initiation against the body. Any spiritual path that demands you completely abandon your physical and mental health. Any practice that asks you to ignore your survival instinct. Any doctrine that treats extreme suffering as the goal and not an occasional consequence is dangerously close to a spiritualized form of self-destruction. In the end, we're left with an image that's hard to forget. A 33-year-old woman lying on a cross carved into the earth, on an island of monks and fairies, with a darkened crucifix on her chest and a dagger near her hands. An inquest recording death by exposure to cold, and a circle of occultists convinced there was something more beating behind the dry lines of the report. After a simple burial in the cemetery of St. Oran on Iona, Netta's body became part of the island's quiet landscape. Her modest headstone rests among the graves of kings, monks, and pilgrims who, like her, sought the sacred in their own way. But the story didn't end there. In a way, that's where it began, for us. Over the decades, each generation of occult students rediscovered Netta's case and projected onto it their own questions. Some see her as a martyr of a psychic battle, others as a victim of spiritual irresponsibility by leadership, others still as a warning about the risks of fleeing reality in the name of spiritual pursuit. The case is retold in books, articles, conversations, always wrapped in a fog of unanswered questions. And now, it finds you. Maybe you look at Netta with compassion, maybe with fascination, maybe with fear, maybe with an identification you don't even want to admit, because on some level, every seeker feels that impulse, to step through the mirror and go where almost no one goes. The point isn't to erase that calling, it's to learn how to walk with it without getting lost. Netta Fornario's life and death seem to summarize, in an almost painfully symbolic way, 3 pillars without which any healthy spiritual path collapses. Discernment, anchoring, and limits. Discernment, so you don't turn every pain into an astral attack, every coincidence into prophecy, every conflict into mystical war. Anchoring, so you keep ties to life, real, relationships, a minimum routine, care for the body, the mind, the material world. Limits, so you know when to stop, when to ask for help, when to admit something has gotten out of control. When those 3 pillars fail, what should have been a bridge to the sacred can become an abyss. And the most dangerous part is that many times the person truly believes they're ascending, when in reality, they're just descending deeper and deeper into an inner labyrinth. Maybe that's why the image of Netta, alone on that hill, is so hard to erase. In a single scene, it holds both the most beautiful and the most risky parts of spiritual seeking, total surrender. and absolute risk. The courage to go where few dare to go, and the danger of never finding the way back. When you finish hearing this story, the carved cross on Iona stops being just a macabre detail. It becomes a symbol, a question. What is your own cross? How far are you willing to go in your search for meaning? And most importantly, what force is really guiding your steps? A genuine thirst for truth, or a quiet fascination with the abyss? You weren't on that hill in 1929, but you're here now, with the chance to choose a different path, to honor the deep yearning that moves people like Netta without repeating her most dangerous steps, to study occultism, spirituality, mysticism with depth, but also with responsibility. If this story shook something in you, if it sparked doubts, fears, or insights, don't let it slide. Pay attention to how you've been relating to the invisible. Notice whether your search is opening you up to life or isolating you from it. And if at any point you feel like you're going too deep without structure, remember, asking for help, finding anchoring, taking care of your mind and body, that isn't spiritual weakness. It's a requirement for any real expansion of consciousness. The earth cross on the island of Iona has already broken down with time. The wind erased its edges, the rain washed away the mark, and the grass grew back. But somewhere in the collective memory of everyone who walks between the visible and the invisible, it's still there, reminding you that the sacred doesn't demand you die for it. It demands you live more consciously. And maybe that's Netta Fornario's true legacy. Not just the tragic legend of an occultist lost in the fog, but the quiet warning of someone who went too deep, so you can go deep without disappearing. If you want to keep exploring stories like this, full of symbols, risks, and revelations, you know where to find us. If you made it this far, it means you really enjoyed our content. So make sure you check out our profile. There are a lot of videos you're still going to love. We've got videos on the biographies of Aleister Crowley, Helena Blavatsky, Pythagoras, Plato, Manly P. Hall, and other great masters. We also have tons of documentaries on magic, sacred geometry, Kabbalah, esotericism, occultism, spirituality, and many other topics that can truly make a difference in your life. Feel free to leave your suggestion in the comments for upcoming videos. You'll save years of study in just a few minutes of your day by watching our videos. I promise you, you're going to learn a lot with us. Hit the like button down below to support our work. Your like helps YouTube recommend more videos like this to you. And save this video to a study or meditation playlist so you can come back to it later. If you enjoyed it, comment below so I know with the phrase, "I want a continuation." That way I'll know you really liked it, and I'll make more videos like this. Remember to subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next content. Only you can help this knowledge reach more people. Share this video on social media, in groups, and with at least 3 friends. Knowledge is the only tool that can truly change the world. And you're already changing it right now, because a mind that expands the entire universe at the same time. I'm truly grateful to have you here with me on this journey. Now, click on one of the videos that'll pop up on your screen. Every video on this channel was made to awaken your best self.